Commissioner, welcome.
Thank you.
You moderated the panel, breakout panel on water, and I know you have said in various venues that how we manage our water in Florida is one of the most critical issues to our future. Would you elaborate?
Well, I'll be happy to. If you think about the golden goose that is Florida, the three golden eggs are tourism, construction, and agriculture. All three of those economic drivers are inseparable from good water policy. Tourists are drawn to our water, springs, beaches, coastlines, lakes. Construction obviously has to have a steady supply of water to support the new people and the new jobs that come with that. And of course, agriculture, water is its lifeblood. So whether your goal in life is to save the Everglades, build a new subdivision, or plant a new orange grove, it's going to come down to getting water policy right to maintain quality of life and economic vitality for our state.
Well, how are we doing in our policy relating to the management of water?
One of the things that came out of the panel yesterday was a good news story, and there's been a lot of bad news about water all summer with releases from Lake Okeechobee that's come about from excessive rainfall and the harm that that does to estuaries and flooding the Everglades. But the good news story is that even through the last decade of extraordinary population growth in Florida, water consumption was only slightly above flat. So conservation and efficiency and being smarter about how we use alternative water supplies is actually paying off. The statistic for the Orlando area was very striking, where you've seen just extraordinary double-digit increase in the number of people, but less than 1 or 2% growth in the amount of water used by those people. So there's a lot of good things that come from just being smarter about how we use what God gives us.
Give us some examples of how that conservation is occurring. What are the policies or the incentives driving conservation?
Well, what we're seeing at the city and county level is the investment in what they call reclaimed water. So water that's not fully retreated, goes through your house once, it's not fully retreated to drinking water standards, but it is treated, and then it's used to water lawns and parks and golf courses and things like that, so that we're getting more than one use out of that water instead of being as wasteful. Another good example is the citrus industry. Over the last 20 years, they have converted from sprinkler irrigation to microjet irrigation. And every time you convert to microjet irrigation, it's between 46 and 65% savings on water in an industry that occupies over 500,000 acres of the state. So people are doing better, agriculture is doing a lot better. So as we continue to move into the next phases of conservation and efficiency, we're just always looking for that new engineering marvel, whether it's reclaimed water or desalination or some new disruptive technology yet to be discovered that allows us to be smarter about water. Florida water problems are better than the West because we actually get a lot of rain. Our problem is capturing it and storing it to get us through those drought periods. But in a state that gets 50 inches of rain, it's an engineering question more than a praying for more rain type question.
Well, I'm hearing optimism from you, and there are many people in Florida, like up in the Panhandle where I live, that are concerned that water demand, let's say in central southwest Florida, southeast Florida, may mean at some time that people will be coming for our water in the Panhandle, and that there may be really some water wars out there in the future. That may be stating it in an exaggerated way, but I'm hearing from you that because of conservation and other factors, that may not really be that much of a problem.
Well, you raise a very important point there. First of all, water wars don't serve anyone. They're bad. There's no winners of a water war, except lawyers. The second piece is South Florida can't steal North Florida's water because North Florida's got more guns. And the third piece of this, though, is that the important thing for the average Floridian to understand is that this water crisis is not limited to South Florida, and it's not just an urban versus rural conflict. The community in Florida that is suffering the most right now from the absence of a smart water policy is Apalachicola. And so it's not Miami, it's not Fort Lauderdale, it's not Tampa or Orlando, it's Apalachicola and the hard-working men and women who depend on Apalachicola Bay for their lives.
Let's talk about that. That involves more than the state of Florida. That involves upstream in the Apalachicola River. Talk about that and the impact on Florida, and even the Gulf of Mexico?
You know, the community of Apalachicola really finds themselves in a sort of the epicenter of the bureaucratic crisis that comes from some of these water issues. You have 3 states involved, Florida, Georgia, and Alabama. You have the city of Atlanta involved in terms of withdrawing water from the Chattahoochee River to support their explosive population growth. And you have a situation where you have a very small county and a very small community struggling to have their voice heard. And so that's something that we've really made a priority and elevated, and the governor certainly has elevated it by filing suit in the U.S. Supreme Court against the state of Georgia to resolve some of these issues. But the situation there is one where there has been a long-term, prolonged drought condition in the southeastern United States that has substantially reduced the flow of fresh water into Apalachicola Bay that the oysters depend on, and that all the jobs that are built around that seafood industry then depend on. This is one that Florida needs to continue to make a high priority to save those jobs and protect our panhandle communities.
What actually can be done, or at least give us a status update, because that's a very important part of the state and a huge hit on the economy of that region.
It's an enormous blow to the economy and to the natural resource that the economy's built on, frankly. So we move in a lot of different directions. I mean, on the lawyer front, the governor has filed suit in the United States Supreme Court against Georgia. Everybody knows that that's not going to be a rapid resolution. I mean, it could be years before that winds its way to the people who will ultimately make that decision. But it's a pretty major cruise missile that he launched at Georgia when he decided to move forward with that lawsuit. The second piece of that is looking for ways to support the jobs that are impacted by the loss of that oyster fishery. So we're looking at expanded aquaculture opportunities in Franklin and Gulf and Wakulla counties. For those who are interested in doing that, the Apalachicola Bay has always been a wild harvest, a naturally raised oyster community, and we want to continue to support that. But there's some folks out there, some oystermen, who are looking at new ways of growing oysters, and our role as regulating aquaculture, we're supporting that and moving forward on that. We're also funding some shelling activities where we're releasing that spat, the baby oysters, and trying to get them resettled and establish new communities of oysters in less productive areas. But the bottom line on that bay, until we get more fresh water, this is going to be a long-term problem.
I kind of wanted to get you down in the weeds on that to kind of demonstrate that water can be an incredibly important resource, and the lack of it can be very devastating. Let's talk about your panel. One of the major topics was to try to isolate those disruptive factors, either positive or negative, that need to be dealt with, identified now before they become disruptive, or we don't take advantage of them. What came out of your panel?
Well, there's a couple of things. First of all, the water crisis, the water challenges, it's a statewide problem. You know, we just camped out on the Apalachicola issue. That is every bit as important to the future of Florida as the Lake Okeechobee issue. Our springs issues and the challenges they face in water quantity and water quality are every bit as important as restoring the Everglades. So we need to view this from a statewide basis. This is not an Everglades-centric problem or a Southeast Florida-centric problem. It's statewide, and we need to focus on it. Having said that, the strategies for solving some of these issues are different in a spring shed than they are in the Lake Okeechobee or the Northern Everglades Basin. So we need to have different strategies for different parts of the state, because resolving an issue of a spray field in Lake City is different than resolving an issue of creating a multi-billion-dollar flowway for Lake Okeechobee. We had 2 great panelists, Cynthia Barnett, who's an acclaimed journalist and author. She wrote a book called Mirage about Florida's water policy. And Melissa Meeker, who's been in and out of public life. She's an engineer in the private sector now, but she formerly ran South Florida Water Management District and really brought that district to a historic agreement with the EPA and the feds on how to clean up the water going into the Everglades. Really the most expensive and most critical piece of the water puzzle in South Florida is Lake Okeechobee. And if you go back to the 20s, we had back-to-back devastating hurricanes, killed 2,500 Floridians at a time when there weren't a lot of people in Florida. So it gives you a sense of the breadth of destruction. And as a result, the federal government built a dike around Lake Okeechobee. So all of our problems and all of our potential for water issues in South Florida really revolve around Lake Okeechobee as the biggest beating heart of water policy for that part of the state. The dike is failing. It's on the top 10 list of most unstable and dangerous dams and dikes in the country. They have begun a repair project on that will be many billions of dollars and many years to complete. But until we get that right, we will continue to have challenges getting adequate water to the Everglades, getting adequate water to agriculture, and getting adequate water to the millions of people who live in South Florida.
Some big issues. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.